Hello everybody and welcome back to another one of our raid build videos. This one's slightly different, as you can probably guess by the title. This raid build video isn't actually for an upcoming 7-star raid. Instead, it's for a very cool 5-star raid that's right around the corner. Starting on December 20th and running to, I believe, January 5th. Yes, January 5th, we have the 5-star Rayquaza, a shiny Rayquaza on top of that. Coming to Tera Raids. Of course, not being a 7-star, this Pokemon is going to be slightly weaker than some of the other raids we've tackled. But because it is a legendary Pokemon in Rayquaza of all legendary Pokemon, it's going to be a very powerful raid. So I thought I'd still do a quick little build video on it. I don't have 6 Pokemon like I normally do for you. I only have 3. I thought that was fair since, it's only a 5-star raid. It shouldn't be too difficult. Realistically, even if you don't have a perfect counter, you should be fine as long as your counter works moderately well. So I thought I'd give you guys some room to kind of come up with your own counters. It could be fun to see what other people come up with. Maybe they'll come up with something better than I did. It's probably pretty likely, It's cool to see what the community comes up with these raids. And with a 5-star raid event like this, it's more likely that people will be able to kind of experiment more and decide on something themselves. So I only built you a few sets here today, but all of them should work moderately well against this 5-star Rayquaza that's coming in Tera Raids. Again, December 20th to January 5th. But let's get right into analyzing what Rayquaza is going to be like. Of course, Rayquaza is a dragon and flying type Pokemon. Its Terra type here is going to be dragon type, which is very, very, interesting. It's going to make it so its dragon type moves are a lot more powerful and hit a lot harder. So you got to keep that in mind when building some sets. Rayquaza's signature move, despite the fact that it's going to be Terra Dragon, is a flying move in Dragon Ascent. Dragon Ascent, of course, lowers Rayquaza's defenses a little every time it uses it. So we kept that in mind while building these sets, although a lot of them kind of expect the Rayquaza to clear its stat drops. I could definitely see it leading with a Dragon Ascent and then really quickly clearing stat drops after. Despite the fact that it's not a 7-star raid, I'm still expecting it to use a little bit of strategy and be difficult because, of course, this is a shiny Rayquaza raid we're going to be going after. So I don't think they're just going to hand it to you, but again, 5-star, it will be slightly easier than if it was to be 7-star, of course. It also gets Outrage, which is a fantastic physical dragon move. At the end of Outrage, Rayquaza will confuse itself, which is worth noting. But I could see it getting around this with some sort of weird raid mechanic that we might not have seen yet. It could just clear debuffs to itself very easily and then not be confused anymore. Extreme Speed is also another pretty big Rayquaza staple. That's actually what it runs when you, at least that's what I've seen it run when it's ran on Battle Stadium, so I could definitely see it running that. And then Dragon Dance is a fantastic option for Rayquaza to boost its speed, but more importantly to attack stat. It's worth noting that Rayquaza has an equal attack and special attack stat, so you might notice that the other 4 moves I have listed as its big moves to keep note of are all special moves. You've got Draco Meteor, of course, being kind of similar to Outrage and Dragon Ascent if you were to put them into one, except of course Draco Meteor lowers the special attack when it uses it. I could definitely see leading or using Draco Meteor once, getting that special attack drop, and then sticking to its physical move, so it's not really feeling the effects of that. That could be an interesting way they can go about that. Hurricane, of course, getting that flying stab without the Dragon Ascent defense debuff after you use it. Fire Blast and Ice Beam are great coverage options, and this Pokemon also does get a number of rock moves, as you can see in its honorable move mentions. We've got Ancient Power and Rock Slide as great coverage options to maybe take out some ice types that you might have brought to deal with this Pokemon, and then Thunderbolt, just another great coverage option kind of in line with Fire Blast and Ice Beam. Of course, Rayquaza's only ability is Airlock, which means no weather effects are going to take place during this battle, so don't bring any. Alolan Ninetales is actually a Pokemon I thought of building at first, and then I started thinking about it, and I was like, wait, Airlock will make that impossible. So as appealing as a Pokemon as that Pokemon seems, it really won't work here. Of course, as a pure Dragon type Pokemon, Rayquaza is going to be weak. A pure Dragon type Pokemon, because of its Terra type, I should mention. It's going to be weak to other Dragon types, but I recommend not bringing those because it can just use a Dragon move against you. Fairy types, which I think built entirely here, and then Ice types, which might be a decent option, but again, keep in mind it does get Ancient Power and Rock Slide. It's also worth noting that this Pokemon does get Earthquake, just in case you plan on bringing a Steel type. Like Tinkaton was another Pokemon I thought of building, but it gets Earthquake, so might not be a best choice. But it also gets Iron Head, which makes building for it a little bit difficult. I think they wouldn't do all those covered options, because again, this isn't a 7-star raid. It's not meant to be incredibly difficult. I think, if they were going to give it a bunch of coverage options and make it really, really difficult, they would have upped it to 7 stars and just kept it like that. But I'm not really expecting to see Iron Head. That seems like a bit of an extreme counter. But with that being said, let's get over into the Pokemon we've built. Our first one here, we've actually seen this one a few times. We've got Clefairy, of course, holding the Eviolite, so it gets a little bit of defense boost that it wouldn't get otherwise if it evolved into Clefable. Its Terra type is going to be Fairy, and of course its typical typing is also Fairy. When it comes to its moves, this Pokemon is entirely focused on support, as you can see here. Life Dew, Reflect, and Chilling Water are all great ways for this Pokemon to support its teammates by either healing, making sure you guys are taking less damage with that Reflect, making it, so you take a lot less physical damage. If you notice that Rayquaza is using a lot more special moves than you first expected, you can switch that out pretty easily for Light Screen. Chilling Water is a fantastic way for you to build up to your Tera eventually and lower Rayquaza's attack stat every time you use it. I definitely would recommend opening with a Reflect and then just spamming Chilling Water, keeping an eye on your teammate's health and pressing Life 2 if needed. After a few Chilling Waters, your team should be taking a lot less damage, especially with the big important ability that makes Clefairy so much better than Clefable with Friend Guard. Friend Guard makes it so your teammates only take 75% as much damage as they would otherwise as long as Clefairy is on the field. And with that and Eviolite, Clefairy definitely kind of pushes Clefable out of the way to become the prime raid support here. Once you get to your Tera, if you need a little bit of extra damage, you can press that Moonblast. You'll be doing a decent amount, not a whole lot realistically, but if you need it and it's like your team only needs a little bit more damage and you notice you're not dealing quite enough, you can start switching to some Moonblast. With that Tera Fairy, you should start dealing quite a bit of damage eventually, but it would take a while to get there, so I definitely would more focus on support with the Life Dew, Reflect, and Chilling Waters. Moving on to our next Pokemon, we've got another pretty important raid staple. Oh, I should actually, hold on, my bad. I forgot to mention, with Clefairy, you want to max out HP, and I split it up into defense and special defense because, again, I could see Rayquaza going a little bit of either way. You're going to max out HP, like I said, put 192 points in defense because I think that's what Rayquaza is really going to prioritize with Dragon Ascent. And then I put 64 points in special defense, just a little bit of extra bonus, and that makes its stats moderately more well-rounded, so it can take a bit of a hit on either side. Again, Eviolite's going to help a lot there too, and Friend Guard will make it so your teammates are taking a lot less damage. After Reflect and Chilling Water, Clefairy should be able to stick around for a while, so keep that in mind. This Pokemon is going to be the Bold Nature, which is plus defense minus attack, and every IV matters except its attack set. You don't care what that value is because you're only using Moonblast and Chilling Water, which are both special moves. Moving on to our next Pokemon, we've got Azumarill here, another pretty big common raid staple. Azumarill, of course, being a water fairy type, you're going to give it the Terra type of fairy and give it the Shell Ball Hull item. I chose Azumarill because obviously it's a pretty important raid Pokemon. It's been around and useful for a lot of Terra raids, but they actually are running a raid event leading up to this Rayquaza that makes Azumarill a lot easier to get, so I thought this Pokemon would be a lot more accessible. And I feel like that's a good hint that Rayquaza won't be running many options good against Azumarill. Because, I mean, the Pokemon Company wouldn't give out a Pokemon for you to explicitly use against Rayquaza if it wasn't going to work. So I feel like that's a good hint there. Of course, we've got a pretty typical little Azumarill set here. We've got Play Rough as its main damage output, Belly Drum on there. Chilling Water is a great way for you to get to your Tera. And Light Screen is on there as well. You might not have to use Light Screen. It all depends on what Rayquaza goes for. Unfortunately, Azumarill doesn't get Reflect, or I would have recommended running that instead. But I'd recommend going for a couple Chilling Waters, so Rayquaza's damage output is a little lower. Maybe then going for a Heal Chair, and then Belly Drum. I would not lead with a Belly Drum with this Pokemon. That is a surefire way to make sure your team just loses a bunch of time right off the bat. Definitely go for a couple Chilling Waters first. Make sure Rayquaza's not dealing a whole lot of damage. Heal up, then go for a Belly Drum, and then you'll start dealing a whole lot of damage with Play Rough that you'll be healing back with the Shell Bell Hull item. Its ability, of course, is going to be huge power, which doubles this Pokemon's attack stat, and when it comes to EVs, you want to max out HP, max out attack, and for the last little bit in defense. This Pokemon is going to be the Adamant Nature, which is plus attack and minus special attack, and when it comes to IVs, everything matters except its special attack stat. Realistically, its special kind of matters here because you're using Chilling Water, but you're not using that for damage output, so you can kind of ignore it. That's what I did. You don't really need to max it out or spend a bottle cap if you don't have any. But the Chilling Water, again, isn't for damage anyway. Your Play Rough is the main way you're going to be dealing damage. Chilling Water will actually be resisted, so I wouldn't even really bother, even if you do have the bottle caps. Just max out its attack and don't worry about its special. Moving on to our last Pokemon here, we've got Sylveon. I only built 3 Pokemon per day because this is a 5-star raid, so I thought it'd be a little more interesting for you guys to kind of go off on your own and see what you can come up with on your own. But again, Sylveon, we got our last Pokemon here. Sylveon is a really good counter for this as far as I'm aware. Sylveon, of course, is the normal, or typically a fairy Pokemon. Its Terra type is going to be fairy, and you're going to give it the Metronome held in it. This Pokemon's moveset is going to consist of Reflect to make sure Rayquaza is dealing a lot less physical damage. Again, if you notice that Rayquaza runs a lot of more special moves than I first expected, you can switch that to Light Screen pretty easily. Sylveon gets both. Draining Kiss is going to be your main damage output. Mudslap is a great way for you to get to your Tera, because every time you use Mudslap, Rayquaza's accuracy will go down, which means you'll just be taking less damage overall. After a few Mudslaps, and if you notice that Rayquaza has either already cleared stat boost or doesn't do it, maybe set up a Calm Mind or two. That way your Draining Kisses can start dealing a whole lot more damage. I also recommend running, any ability on this Pokemon. Nothing works here, if that makes sense. Like Q-Charm, you'd think would do something, but Rayquaza is a genderless Pokemon, so Q-Charm doesn't do anything. Its other ability, Pixelate, doesn't do anything here either, so you can kind of just ignore its ability, so don't worry too much about that at all. The main goal with this Pokemon is to set up a Reflect, go for a few Mudslaps to get to your Tera. Maybe press Calm Mind once or twice, just in case you're either taking some special damage, or you just want to start dealing more damage and you notice that Rayquaza isn't hitting you very often after a couple months lapse. And then just start pressing Draining Kiss. After a few Draining Kisses, your Metronome held item will start really building up with the power, and you'll start dealing a whole lot of damage with that. That you'll, of course, be healing, because Draining Kiss is a draining move. When it comes to its stats, you want to max out HP, max out special attack, and put 4 points into defense. And when it comes to IVs, everything matters except this Pokemon's attack stat. This 5-star Tera boss is going to be a little bit difficult, but I'm not expecting it to be as difficult as a 7-star raid. So again, I've only built you guys 3 Pokemon here because I really want to hear what you guys have to build for this Rayquaza. So I'd love to hear what you guys are thinking might work against this Pokemon. So please leave it in the comments below. And if any of these Pokemon aren't working for you or they're just not your style, go check out the comments and see what other people will come up with. I'm very excited to see what this Pokemon brings out of the community because, of course, 7-star Shiny Rayquaza is a pretty, cool Pokemon. I'm sure everyone will want to grab one of their own, and I'm looking forward to it. I've already got a Shiny Rayquaza. I'm going to flex a little, but I'm looking forward to getting another in, another Pokeball. It'll be cool to catch it in like a luxury ball or something to match its colors. So I hope you guys are looking forward to this I almost said 7-star, this 5-star Tera Raid as much as I am. Again, December 20th to January 5th is when this Pokemon will be in Raid Dens. And again, thank you guys so much for watching this Tera Raid build video. I hope to see you guys next time, and good luck out there in those Tera Raid Dens. Have a good day.